Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Flex Podcast, PGA edition. We are back this week for the OHL Classic at Mayakoba. We are in Mexico. It is almost election day. There's going to be no jokes made about any of that. We had the Shriners Hospital Open. I'm joined by Colin, Davey, and Peter Jennings, a.k.a. CSURAM, as always. Colin, have we talked since the Cubs, or I can't even remember?
I am pinching myself, and the Cubs are still World Series champions in 2016. I still have moments this week I wake up where it's like, did that happen? Did it happen? Like, yes, it actually happened. I don't think I need to tell everyone twice about that may be the greatest Game 7 that I've seen in any sport, much less anything, much less the fact that I was incredibly invested in that outcome.
Sure.
Congrats to the Cubs. I can't believe they actually did it. Bryan, I lied. I'll make one election joke. We're all just going to write in Theo Epstein, and no one would think twice about it. Pete, I know you're on his bandwagon for sure. So,
oh yeah, I tweeted it out.
2016 infomercial, that's.
I 100% would vote for Theo, and it makes sense. Even without any preparation, anything, Theo absolutely would be the best candidate. I mean, what he's done in sports and the way his hands is not even close. Seriously, though, I would trust Theo with pretty much anything. I'm
not in a position to even argue any of those fine points just because I'm so deliriously happy that the Cubs.
Even when he was drinking at the end, and they're interviewing him, he still is you can tell in his face he's pretty wasted, and he's still so articulate, saying all the right things, and it's just that guy. He's freaking sharp.
Did you see Bill Murray grabbing the Fox microphone and everything? Yeah, I want them to have a buddy cop movie. Can we just have that for
Murray was interviewing him and trying to get him going, and they're spraying champagne and stuff in each other's eyes, and he still is handling himself so well. It's just he's so sharp.
You want a movie with Bill Murray and Theo?
Yeah, that absolutely. Oh, I would pay so much money for that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that was the greatest game.
Cubs chat, everybody. I could keep talking about this for 20 minutes, but I don't know. Maybe we should talk about golf at some point. So maybe.
Or we talk about the Broncos listen to the Raiders. Nah, we won't go there for Pete.
At least my boy Capri Bibbs scored a 69-yard touchdown.
There you go, Capri, who apparently is going to get more touches. Yeah. All right, let's talk golf. Yeah, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I guess we can quickly look back at last week. Shriners Hospital for Children Open, like we all expected. I can't remember who had Rob Hampling at our when we take our players at the end.
I think he was third, and he was just on the tip of our tongue. We were all he would have been if we had one more round of drafting, we would have picked him for sure.
Yeah,
I actually watched the end of that on Sunday. I had the 4 TVs going, and there was no spot for football. I didn't have a football game available, and I watched the end because it was just a couple games, and he played well. He made a great putt on 18 to win it. Kepka, who we did have, was right there.
Yeah.
It was a good.
Not we. I think I had him right, didn't I? Was that I think I'm still steaming. I want to win.
I'm trying to take the credit here, Colin. You're not gonna let.
I'm totally gonna win this thing this year. I'm excited. All right, it's a long season ahead of us.
Rob Hampling, though, 47 years old, giving hope to the Tiger truthers out there. Tiger's 40. If Rob Hampling can get it done.
Yeah.
There's hope for Tiger yet. So any thoughts on the Shriners other than, Brooks continues to look good? Any other things?
I don't know. I thought we pretty much got – I was actually really happy with, us calling our picks across the board. I thought Moore's decent but underperformed. Ches had me worried for a little bit because he started off the round 1 +5 and still clawed his way back to a top 20 finish. So I think everybody pretty much was, in the words of Dennis Green, they were who they thought that we were. Or they were – I probably butchered. All right.
Something like that.
I like where you're going with it. It was a pretty relatively predictable week relative to what we said outside of the winner, obviously. But, Kepka is someone we're probably going to be buying. And, it will be interesting to see how this season gets going here.
Yeah, another good finish for Keegan as well. I finished 7th. So transitioning to this week's tournament, the OHL Classic at Mayakoba, our top 5 price golfers: Russell Knox, Emiliano Grillo, John Rahm, Jim Furyk, and Keegan Bradley are our top 5. This is the CSU Ram 88 Open, really.
Yeah, welcome to the Peter Jennings Open. This is just, oh my God.
I don't even know how to draft the team. I mean, these are the guys I play every single week. I don't have the most expensive guys, so I'm completely lost. So, Colin, you'll have to lead the way here. I mean, you can't just jam in Grillo and Keegan Bradley and Rahm and Knox. I mean, I'm used to Knox and Grill being like 7K.
Yeah, that was your lineup right there. Those top 5 guys right there.
Yeah, you're just gonna fire off an angry email to DraftKings support saying like it keeps showing that this lineup costs $58,000, but I know that that's not true. So
I've had all these guys in my lineup multiple times. What's going on?
So good.
There are some guys who are cheaper that I recognize, but yeah, my horses are all up at the top, and I guess that's good for us. I mean, we're all kind of been on the ball with predicting guys that will rise up the ranks. I mean, Stenson we were on earlier, not just keep saying we. Colin was on Stenson, calling him, and he had a great season. And a lot of the guys that we wanted to take up front collectively have all kind of risen up. So I have to identify some other guys that we're bullish on, but this is certainly a good week for it because there's a lot of unknown, and curious to get Colin's takes for sure.
Yeah, definitely not star-studded like last week. So, I think we'll have to dig into the models and try to find some guys. Colin, so let's talk about the course. So this is, again, the OHL Classic at Mayakoba. It's in Playa del Carmen in Mexico. It's at the Chameleon Golf Club is what they call it, whatever that is in Spanish. Not a whole lot of data publicly on this course. It is short. It's just over 7,000. So, but other than that, it's sort of a little hard to find some data on it. So, Colin, I'm curious your thoughts on what exactly this course sets up for.
Yeah, so this is you're absolutely right. It's short, and there's not a lot of data because they don't do shot link on the course in Mexico. So the strokes gain crowd will probably have to resort to a little bit more conventional stats. Even with the running conventional stats through it, I definitely plays out as an accuracy course for me. If you want to take a look at how your top guys fare out, Knox and Furyk are rating the best. Griot's moderate. John Rahm is rating poorly. Tony Finau is rating poorly. So that's just a straight up, like, don't overthink it. Take your accuracy guys and just, go from there.
Cool. Any thoughts about the course, Pete, or just, what to do if I guess we've talked about this a ton at this point, just what to do if you don't have much course data, just sort of rely on some talent and adjust your round score?
Yeah, I think we rely on that, and if we know it's an accuracy course, we can certainly take that angle. And one thing I love looking at is recent green and regulation scores. I think it's predictive, and we certainly can leverage that in a spot like this. So definitely leaning that way so far when looking at golfers, and a lot of the guys who are big odds favorites are accuracy guys. So the other thing too is obviously we're chasing scoring like we are every single week on DraftKings, and all these things go hand in hand. But should be a fun week.
For sure. So let's talk some players, guys. So just quickly, running through the last couple of years, Graham McDowell took this tournament down last year at 18 under. He is back in the field to defend his title. Jason Bone and Russell Knox finished at second place last year. Russell Knox obviously in this as well. Charlie Hoffman the year before, Harris English set the record at 21 under. So we see some pretty low scores. So birdies, it looks like, should be important yet again. So I guess, let's just dive right into our player analysis. So let's start in our value tier, and let's go guys that are 7K and lower. Colin, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm all excited to see the shakeout because number one with a bullet in the value tier is Ches Reavie. It is back to vintage Ches where he's well under 7,000, posted a really good finish last week, and his price keeps going down. And it's an accuracy course to boot. He gets a great gain. This is just like March 2016 all over again, where he's easily the top the class of the value tier. Beyond that, a couple interesting names. Adam Hadwin is popping pretty nicely. It's definitely not a course fit by any stretch, and he has some pretty bad course history, to be honest. But I think he's been an 8K guy like for the last couple tournaments. I don't think anything he's done, especially in a weaker field, justifies that much of a drop off on the price. Chad Campbell is another name that pops pretty well. Not great course history, but it's a great course fit for sure. I think I've been high on him a couple times, kind of like to bring up the value tier. And maybe my favorite cash game value play this week is Kyle Reifers, who is just as cheap as Campbell. But what sets them apart is, at the very least, it's neutral course history, if not bad, decent course fit. And the sneaky nice part about Kyle Reifers that just popped this week, he has the largest sample size of tournaments played over anybody in like in the whole golfer pool and all of PGA at this point, much less the slate. I think sample size and essentially volume in terms of like assuredness of like outcomes is kind of underrated, going back to that study I did as far as like what are the big drivers of cash game success. So he's a little bit more bankable at 6,200, just given the fact that we have more information on him than any other golfer in the field. So that was just one of the things that popped this week. So I would not be afraid to, if you load up with Reeve and Rifers, that's a pretty solid, just like great value and kind of like just solidness behind what you're looking at. So those guys are my favorite for sure. I'll leave a couple because Pete's probably got some names that pop for him as well.
Well, those are the two that I was going to mention first for sure. Reeve by far number one, and then Rifers actually was a pretty popular play for a lot of guys down the stretch of the season. I thought he played really well. Another guy who's cheap but just hasn't been as good lately is Danny Lee. If you want to take a shot on him in tournaments, I certainly think that's viable. Has had a lot of missed cuts if you look through his game log, including last week. But this is someone who can string together really good rounds and has been priced pretty high in the past. So he's still down there in terms of price, but I like Reeve and Rifers more. Then I have a question on Ryan Blom. He's fourth in my model right now, and I guess it's because he's had really good recent GIR scores.
Yeah, same for me.
Ryan Blom, I'm trying to figure out this guy because I have no idea who he is. He finished 31st last week. He was 11th at Sanderson Farms. He finished 26th at Safeway. His last 5 rounds have been fantastic. So trying to figure out what's going on with him, but he's the other guy that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, he's top 10 in my model too. So yeah, I'm curious, Colin, what your thoughts on him?
I'm punting on him just because my standard disclaimer is not enough sample size yet. I know that's not an interesting answer, and it could be a leak of mine where, I'm too conservative on players, just if I don't have the requisite number of points, but he doesn't meet my minimum threshold yet. So, and I know we've gone back and forth on this a million times. What do you do with a hot start rookie who doesn't have enough data points? My strategy is it's too unknown for me, and it represents too much risk.
Yep. That's
Fair enough. Well, what other guys can I ask you about? Zach Blair has played well in his 2 tournaments here. Has really, really great GIR recent scores. It's cheap. I don't know.
I guess I think that the results are decent there. If you want to go pure course history and the value tier as far as unknown people, I would actually go Chris Stroud. So if you pull up his tournament results, he's played this thing, like the last 7 years, and there are 3 top 5 finishes in there, like 6 out of 7 missed cuts. It's just one of those things that, like, unless you're looking at numbers, it wouldn't pop otherwise. So for the course history crowd, I take a flyer on Stroud. I think he has better course history than Zach Blair for sure.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let's move to this next tier, which will be we'll go up to 9K, and then we'll save the guys. Graham McDowell's right at 9-1 and above. We'll save those top tier guys. So this next tier is going to be 7-1 to 9K. And speaking of course history, we got Jason Bones, just around score of 68.4 in his 4 starts. So he's in this tier as well. So I'm curious thoughts on him, but really just the guys at the top of your model. Pete, I'll start with you.
Well, Harold Varner, the third, actually ranks number 1 in my model in this tier. I like him quite a bit. Good course form here, and I think he's a pretty good player for that price. Stanley and Vegas are 2 guys who are also pretty high in my model, but I think certainly more merit some consideration. So all those guys right above 7,000 are certainly interesting. Then Webb Simpson for me at 8K. I think he's a pretty nice play. I believe he doesn't have course history here, but I do think at 8K he merits a lot of consideration. I like him quite a bit. Swafford's another guy who Colin likes in general. I normally take him on longer courses, but 7,500, his name relative to some of these other guys in the field, I think he makes a lot of sense. So those are the guys that kind of caught my eye at first. Curious your thoughts on those. I think Varner, Webb Simpson, and probably Swafford are my favorite with I think Stanley and I think that Vegas are interesting, but not quite as enticing for me.
The only ones I disagree on kind of hard are Varner, which just I don't think it's a good course fit at him for all. There's no course history, and I don't know, even long-term adjusted round, I don't haven't seen anything. I strongly prefer like 6 or 7 different guys in the value tier above him. I don't know why he's popping so hard for you. And then Vegas is kind of in a similar bin for me. I think his disappointing last couple finishes have knocked him down a tier or two, and a little bit bad course fit in history. The guy that's popping number one overall in this tier, which I'm surprised at, is Johnson Wagner. And I know that I've picked him before at like 5,900. He's all the way at 8,400 here. And it seems like this is purely a course history pick because that's the metric of his that is popping by far the highest. So here's his results in 5 tournaments. Miscut, win, 38-16. For a guy that's, on the bottom feeder end of the tour, that's some pretty good course history, even with a miscut aside. His recent performance, even going back to like mid-August, like he's made the cut every single time. He's definitely posted a couple solid. There's a couple 5s in there. Or sorry, he missed the cut last week. But Safeway was definitely a solid showing of his, and he was at least in the FedEx for a while. So he's my number one favorite overall. Other than that, I think the other guys that are popping are Gary Woodland, who it always seems to pop for me just because I'm still surprised to see him kind of at the mid-8s here. And then Mark Leishman, who also doesn't have history here, is kind of in the same boat as Woodland with a slightly less bad course fit, but just another one of those overall plays because he's been as high as 9,500 on a couple other tournaments, and this is a weaker field.
Yeah, I like the Woodland call. He's more of a distance guy, but certainly think that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, Varner's really popping a lot to really look at that. I do like his talent relative to that price in general, but yeah, I can see the reasons you brought up as good things. Wagner is also pretty high in my model, and if you want to go with a strong mustache, this is your guy as well.
Strongest stash in
it's not even close.
Yeah,
his DraftKings picture is incredible.
It's amazing. Yeah. Any Martin Laird interest at all?
Yeah, he's right below Leishman. I could say. I mean, it's a little pricey. I don't think it's necessarily great value.
Value, sure. Yeah.
But like the rate high. Oh yeah, I guess like my favorite value probably in here is Brian Harmon, who has pretty bad course history actually. But so that's just another overall, like he's been as high as 8,500. I think 7,000 is a little cheap for him. Him and Kyle Stanley are my 2 favorite value plays in this tier.
So I didn't get either of you guys Bone calls. Jason Bone. Four tournaments, played great in all 4.
Course history angle, definitely like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely the strongest course history of maybe any field, like relative to his ability.
Yeah.
Good course fit. I don't know. I'm intrinsically nervous about picking someone who's had a heart attack. I'm just too worried about him.
He's fine now.
Yeah. Like when does that change?
Yeah. Let me just say this. One of the biggest DFS, I'm not going to say names, but some of the biggest DFS guys played Bone right out of the gate. Just right away. Just right after the heart attack.
Okay. All right. That's good to know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that was sharp on their part, but a lot of the data guys had him in pretty early, and I think at this point it's probably fine to fire him up.
All right.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, I guess we'll move on to this last tier. So it's going to be the guys that are 9-1 and above. So defending champ Graham McDowell is 9-1, and then all the way up to the most expensive player, Russell Knox, at 11-8. Russell Knox 11-8. Who thought we'd be here? Colin, it's your turn to start here.
Yeah, 2016, Russell Knox is 11-8. Just when you thought I couldn't have any more surprise.
How is he not on the Ryder Cup? Just so ridiculous.
Yeah. I agree, actually. Like he should have had Peter's spot for sure. Yeah, I think like if I had to choose between Knox and Griot, I'd probably pick Griot. I know that Knox has a better fit in history here for sure, but I've always been a little bit more bearish on Knox, so it's not surprising that Griot rates a little bit higher overall. In terms of the value,
so Colin, let me interrupt you quick. What if they were the same price?
I'd pick Griot by a hair.
Okay.
It would be a lot closer. I would be open to like, okay, there's just something that I'm missing here. Maybe like recent GAR is more important at a place like Mayakoba. So I could be pretty, but yeah, that within the margin of error, definitely.
Sure.
So I think that my favorite value plays are here are I mean, Keegan's always there. I know we go back and forth, what to do with him, but like if he's figured out his woes, he's figured out his woes. I mean, you were playing him for a while. Maybe that's good enough for me. And then one of my favorite kind of mid-range plays is Billy Horschel. He has a neutral course fit, not great volume, so maybe more of a GPP flyer in terms of uncertainty. Semi-good course history, but just like I think 9,300 is pretty cheap in a weak field. He's probably I could see him he could find a way into a lineup or two for sure. But yeah, I have Griot over Knox, and then maybe Bradley being the best for his price point. So
yeah,
are you going to pay up for Knox?
I'm not going to pay for Knox. I mean, Griot's my boy more than Knox. I mean, they're close. I mean, you were on Griot. I was more on Knox. We were all in on Griot. I was more the sole guy on Knox. I do think that he's a good play, but that price is just tough. Furyk versus Knox is somewhat intriguing to me too. And Furyk's is significantly cheaper when you're just looking at the quality of golfers here and accuracy guys. So Keegan's the guy you want to play if you're just buying into current form. He's on fire. He's piping drives everywhere. He's hitting every fairway essentially. So I like investing in Keegan as well in this spot. And then outside of that, it's kind of tough. I mean, I was surprised. What do you think of Chris Kirk, Colin?
I have always been bearish on him. This week is no different. No course history, middling fit. I don't know. It's a very meh play to me.
Yeah, he's somewhat high in my model. That was the only guy. So I'm probably going to be fading Finau because it's more of an accuracy course.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you want Bradley does set up better a little bit on longer courses, but I do think this is a really, really good spot for him. And then outside of that, it's kind of tough. I mean, I think that the whole range up top, I mean, like a lot of these guys that are up here outside of like Furyk were in the same range as like these other guys who are still priced in the mid 7s or 8K range. So my initial lean would be going balanced, maybe fitting in Griot because I am really bullish on him long term. I think that he's probably outside of Spieth. He's right there as the best young player. I think we'll see Griot, Spieth, and Justin Thomas have a lot of success. So I don't mind buying him in this spot when there's not as much talent, but yeah, that's it. I'm not playing John Rahm in this spot. Not playing Finau, like I mentioned. Probably not on Kirk. Scott Pierce, he's another guy who I do like coming into this year, especially if he can really figure out that putting, but I'd rather take him at a little bit longer course. Even though he's not super long, but he can be really long in certain situations, especially with his driver. So, yeah, that's kind of the gist of it for me up top. I think you have to lean Griot as the number one overall stud, and then the best lineups I think will be a little bit more balanced this week.
So Pete, John Rahm, if you're looking just recent GIR numbers, actually is better than both Griot and Knox. So you seem to be pretty off Rahm this week. I'm curious why.
I mean, I like him. He's a guy who has a lot of distance, so I normally take him. If you look at his driving accuracy, it's much worse than Griot and Knox. So, yeah, he's been probably scrambling and doing a great job getting on greens from the rough and other angles. But at a course that looks like it sets up more for driving accuracy, I think that's kind of a weakness of his game relative to the rest of it. I mean, you can't go wrong with Rahm in a field like this. He's probably the most talented guy outside of Griot and maybe Furyk. I mean, just in terms of raw talent. And Furyk is not really a guy you'd put up there, but Furyk's obviously had a great career, and would be a knock to say he's not the class of this field. But yeah, I mean, this is a really, really weak field. So in that regard, I do like Rahm, but his driving accuracy just doesn't fit it well enough for me.
So Colin, is there I don't know, is there? It seems like, driving accuracy is a stat, it measures fairways hit. And it seems like that there's just a bunch of error potentially in that stat. A guy could just be barely missing the fairway just in the inner rough. And like, it's fine. Like he's going to have fine approaches into the green, whereas a guy could be spraying it all over the place. And like they could have similar driving accuracy numbers, and those aren't really the same at all. So, is there any way to account for that? Because, I mean, it doesn't look like Rahm's been scrambling or driving it accurate, but his GIR marks are elite. So it's just sort of confusing.
Yeah, I guess, so if we really, I get the idea of a 3-inch missed fairway is the same as a 20-foot missed fairway. And if that were predictably true for like everybody across the long term, then driving accuracy would just be like a weak accuracy. You wouldn't see it getting picked up in something like course fit, right? The fact that we have strong course fit here for driving accuracy says that like it's at least good for telling us something of Mayakoba, right? So like I get it, there are imperfections. There are imperfections in every statistic in terms of its ability to capture totality. But no, I have no reason to doubt driving accuracy as a whole. In Rahm's case, like where you see like, all right, his accuracy seems to be fine, but his GIR is getting there. Yeah, it's a little bit like, and it, you know, because considering his scrambling though, like I actually would probably chalk that up to, keep in mind Rahm has probably the lowest sample size of anybody in this field. So his stats are far more like, if you want like regressing to the mean across is like where you'd expect to balance and kind of be able to see that story, you're not going to see it in Rahm's stats just because he's had maybe a third of the tournament of the sample size that other people are at the top of the leaderboard. So that's my first easiest explanation for why his stats don't make sense. Small sample size.
That's fair. Pete, last question on this tier. Keegan, do you think he's fixed? Is he healthy? Has he been cured?
Oh, he's always been healthy. He's totally fine. It's just really the putting that everything.
Yeah, that's what I meant. His putting.
Yeah. I mean, putting has a lot of noise, a lot of variance. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if he's totally fixed forever, but he's figured something out. And
Sure.
you know, golf is one of those things too, where if you start putting well, the rest of your game will kind of come together in some regards too. I imagine when Keegan was playing out there, he was getting really frustrated, missing all these putts. And, you know, golf is more of a mental thing than almost any other sport out there. You can't just rely on your athleticism. And you know, this is a very, very subjective thing to say. But I do think that when you're confident in all of your game, things can kind of flow together. And we're seeing it here with Keegan. I mean, he was a great golfer. Then he was terrible. I mean, he just completely fell off a cliff. A lot of people blamed it on the Jordan sponsorship. And then he just went on an absolute tear down the, you know, basically once he figured out his putting. And we see that as results recently. I mean, look at his game log. He's been absolutely incredible. So I think that there's something there. I'm not saying it's long-term going to be, you know, he's not going to be a great putter forever, but he's certainly found it now, and it's been good for the rest of his game. His driving accuracy has just been incredible lately. So we'll see if that continues, but I'm definitely buying him right now until something else basically suggests that I shouldn't be buying him. I mean, this is a guy that, you know, has won a major before, and he's one of the top guys in this field.
Sure. Is there a study over there, Colin, of, you know, figuring out when these stats correlate together? Like when a person gets all of a sudden a huge bump in putting, you know, which stats also bump up as well?
I'm sure if I don't know, I really feel that if I did that study, it would just be inconclusive because putting is so noisy. And it's just like, I mean, you've had plenty of good ideas for studies that are on my to-do list, but I would bump that one to the bottom.
That's fair. It was a weak idea. Yeah.
Yes, I know you're capable of more than that, Bryan. I'm only holding you to a high standard.
It was just in my mind because Henrik Stenson is not a good putter, but he was just draining everything when his GIR was at like a historic level as well. Just sort of interesting that those two went hand in hand. So it was more so than a study than like the chicken or the egg. It was the putting giving him confidence to be able to strike the ball better? Was the ball striking setting up better for putts? You know, so interesting thought.
It is an interesting question at the very least. Yeah. That is true.
Sure.
But before we close out, I would also like to give a brief RIP to Harris English in the 7,000 here, seeing him at 9,500, jump from 7,200 last week. Is just clearly everybody's caught on to my recommending him like 20 straight times or something like that. So we should really do that more often. Like any times that like everyone else, like it catches up to like our diamonds in the rough, like should we just like, can we make like a value funeral, like a recurring segment on this podcast?
We need a drop. That's what we need to invest in, some sort of drop. Because this is it. Like all of our guys are just all so expensive.
It's us. It's our fault.
Yep, we didn't ask for the superpower, but I think we do a good job of wielding it wisely.
Yeah.
Let's pick some winners, boys.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, I'll take mid slot this time because I haven't done mid.
Okay, I'll go. I can go first if you guys want to. First picks the expensive guy first or the cheap guy first?
Expensive.
Expensive, yeah.
All right, I'll take Greal right off the bat.
All right, that's a good. I mean, I want to pick Knox, but it feels so dirty. I gotta go Furyk because I was high on him last time when I first started. So like this is my best chance to win on a Furyk for sure. So I'll leave you Knox if you want him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. How do I turn that down?
You gotta take Doc's the favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Going down. I'm gonna go a little off the board. I'm gonna go Kyle Stanley as my value tier.
Okay. Oh wait, that's me. All right. What are we
under 9K, right? Under 9K.
Yeah.
Under 9K?
And I left a lot on the board, which is fine.
Oh yeah, I gotta go stash now. Wagner.
Yeah, he was my first thought, but
Yeah.
all right, Pete, finish this off.
Martin Laird is like the probably the smartest play. I'll go Leishman. I'll go Leishman over Laird.
Okay.
What do you think about that, Colin? Where do you lean on those two?
Yeah, it's basically a coin flip. Like maybe like Leishman, like maybe like 53-47, but like it's
All right.
Yeah.
I didn't totally screwed up.
It was fine.
All right, that was fun, boys.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks everyone for listening. I think we have a little bit of break, don't we?
We got one more.
One more. Okay. Got one more tournament and then a little bit of a break. But definitely thanks for keeping on with us during the fall. I know it's a little crazy with NFL and NBA and NHL and whatever else you play in DFS. There's a ton of sports going on. Awesome time. But we appreciate you guys keeping on with us on the PGA scene. So good luck this week, and we'll talk to you guys next week.